Short-term rentals are all the rage, but some people think it's falling apart. Here's a video by How Money Works, the overdue collapse of short-term rentals. Honestly, I think we just have too many. And all these goddamn fees, man. Cleaning fees that are larger than the freaking nightly rate. Let's hear what they have to say.
Short-term rentals are a $100 billion market that have reshaped global tourism, accelerated a nationwide housing crisis, and created fortunes for early adopters. But now, customers, the government, the public, and the hosts themselves are turning their back on a concept that started out as a fun alternative to stuffy hotel chains, but became everything wrong with modern real estate.
Yeah, sure.
All right, the party's over for Airbnb renters. The company said yesterday that its temporary ban on parties and other large, noisy events is now permanent.
I've put all my savings into my unit. I'm following all the rules, paying all the taxes, buying the business license.
Ultimately, our goal is to get more housing back into the housing market for people to be able to rent.
I just uncovered a massive amount of debt that Airbnb hasn't paid. On the books that they're hiding. Tens of millions, hundreds of millions, possibly even $1 billion plus of debt that they have not paid.
So we are looking around and are saying, what can we do right away that makes more homes available?
The short-term rental market took off when Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia tried to rent out a spare room with an air mattress to attendees of a conference because they realized all of the hotel rooms had been booked out.
Yeah, ultimate hustlers, man. Holy shit. Oh man,
They called their service Air Bed and Breakfast, which was later shortened to the short stay app that you know and love or hate today. Airbnb is now worth more than hotel chains like Hilton and Wyndham combined.
Sure.
The company is by far the largest short-term rental company, and it has achieved excellent penetration into markets around the world where other similar peer-to-peer or network market apps like Uber, DoorDash, Lyft, and even
The crazy thing about all these companies is they offer something they don't own, right? Consider it. It's like a hotel chain without any hotels. It's a cab or taxi service without any taxis. Yeah.
Amazon have failed to take share away from
Or
local
Amazon. They offer products without owning any products. It's just become a software as a service, or that's probably the wrong term, but you get my point.
competition. It was a good idea. Customers loved it for giving them a cheaper alternative to outdated hotels, and hosts liked the opportunity to earn extra income on a spare bedroom or even an entire separate property.
Sure.
But the four parties that make the short-term rental market work, the customers, the hosts, the public, and the platforms, are all now dealing with four unique problems that are threatening to undo this market and take out a lot of other real estate investments with it.
Okay.
The first problem lies with the people who it's hardest to feel sorry for, the hosts. Airbnb and other short-term rental platforms provided a unique opportunity for people to profit off real estate in a totally new way. Having a roommate existed long before Airbnb, but the platform let homeowners offer their spare rooms to travelers who could pay up to triple what a long-term roommate would pay, since budget was the reason that they were looking for a roommate instead of a place of their own.
Yeah.
The extra income was nice, but the added flexibility of a short-term roommate was the biggest appeal to most people. If you had an extra bedroom to rent out in your apartment, you could find a long-term roommate. But then you run the risk that they are the type of person who is messy, loud, doesn't pay the rent on time, or is just a clash with your own personality.
That happens.
With a short-term tenant, any problems are only going to last as long as they're short stay. Other advantages are that payments are handled through the Airbnb platform. There was a rating system that controlled bad behavior, and if you ever wanted the house to yourself because family was coming over or just wanted a quiet week to yourself, it was as easy as blocking out those dates on the app. That was the early value proposition of Airbnb. But sharing a spare room and staying with a random person while on vacation only appealed to a certain type of alternative traveler. Most people...
One thing that's missing here is also understanding why people even decided to do this. Again, it's always a financial thing. I don't think, if cost of living was better, I don't think there would be as many people even willing to do it. And I hear you already, you're thinking, hey, greed exists and people want more money, I get it. But if I know anything, I know that people also enjoy privacy. And a lot of these Airbnb rentals are done so people can make an extra bit of pocket change. And I think a lot of Airbnb would be solved in its own sense if there simply was enough money so that people didn't have to worry too much about those extra X amount of dollars or whatever currency in that country.
people who Airbnb are putting up entire properties for guests to use as exclusive accommodations.
Nice photos.
Instead of a short-term alternative to a roommate, the market became a short-term, higher-yielding alternative to conventional long-term tenants in an investment property. Property owners could make as much as double the rent from short-term stays after paying Airbnb fees than they could from long-term rentals, even if their property was only rented out for half the year. The downside was that short-term rentals required more effort because the property needed constant cleaning between stays and there was less guarantee of consistent income. But financial benefits were still clearly in favor of short-term rentals for properties close to cities and tourist hotspots. Large-scale Airbnb landlords, the Airbnb barons if you will, designed properties with the express intention of cutting down on the effort required from them. They fitted doors with keypad locks that could be changed remotely between guests, easily cleanable surfaces, inexpensive but fashionable fittings, and preferred properties with minimal landscaping. All of this cut down on the additional efforts hosts needed to put into managing a property. But like all good things, it didn't last forever. Airbnb advertised its platform just as hard to new hosts as it did to guests, and investors started buying multiple homes to turn them into Airbnbs. Some hosts turned managing their Airbnb properties into a full-time job, effectively purchasing a job as a hotel general manager. Other hosts took an easier approach. Realtors in high tourist areas started offering short-term property management services where...
How many times has that lady in particular been used in advertisements? God damn. We've seen her so many times.
Just like they would manage traditional long-term tenants, the realtors would instead manage the short-term rentals with some services even handling the listing on Airbnb. Their fee was higher, but the higher short-term rental price meant owners still came out ahead. The additional cash flows from higher-yielding short-term rentals also made it easier to qualify for more home loans because the additional income could be used to pay for the loan on the next property and the next property. The inevitable result was clear. For little additional effort, hosts could make more money from their properties, so the market became oversaturated and hosts started to struggle to rent out their properties enough to make it worthwhile. Short-term rentals also made long-term rentals more expensive, so the gap between what someone can make from a short-term rental versus what they can make from a long-term rental is narrowing. For many hosts, it's no longer worth the additional risk and effort to rent out property short-term, and for the others that could only afford their loans because of the higher rent they got from the short-term rental yield.
Yeah, that's the thing. There used to be... So I used to give out a room on Airbnb back in the day when I was living in Copenhagen, Denmark. Man, I was a starred host though. So I was doing a good job. I didn't mess around with my I guess customers or clients. But today, it's just not the same value for money. And there's a lot less headache if you're able to find a good person to rent, for example, the room long term. And that, as they mentioned, the gap is closing and I see it as well. Especially, people just aren't willing to pay all these extra fees. It's really annoying. I really wish Airbnb would just put the entire fee straight up front. So you don't have to go in through the checkout page or whatever to see the cleaning fee. Or wherever it is. You don't have to do that extra step. Oh my God, that's such a annoying part. And there's also talk about how hotel boutiques, or boutique hotels as they call it, are the next big thing. Because it's more carefully curated, it's more personal with someone in particular and not just this massive host enterprise of someone having 50 homes all for Airbnb.
They might be forced to sell. That's just the first group in the collapsing market for short-term rentals, and they were one of only two that were in any way responsible for the shitstorm to begin with. So it's time to learn how money works to find out why short-term rentals got so big and failed so quickly. Short-term rentals were a good solution to a real problem. Traditional hotels had become overpriced and didn't cater to what a lot of people really wanted when they went away on vacation. Hotels provide a lot of amenities like housekeeping, room service, restaurants, concierge desks, meeting rooms, gyms, spas, pools, valet parking, and 24-hour security. These services are nice, but they come at a price which is either directly baked into the price of a room or charged separately at a significant markup. These services also don't always align with what the vacation goers really want when traveling, which is a place that just feels like home in a different city. Airbnb cut out a lot of amenities that catered more towards business travelers and offered vacationers their own kitchen, multiple bedrooms for their children, and an element of privacy that couldn't be purchased at any hotel chain. It felt like a home away from home because in many cases, it was just someone's home.
Yeah.
Airbnbs were also much cheaper, especially when sharing a larger home between multiple friends or family members who would all need to book their own separate rooms if they were staying at a hotel.
Yeah, also, if you are going to someone's personal home, there's a lot more charm in it. It's been built by someone for years. But so I work as a real estate photographer in Arizona, and I'm telling you, I see a lot of these Airbnbs. They are so plastic. They're just a facade of supposed joy. It's not nice. Some of them are old buildings with just some bullshit interior. And it's just not worth the money anymore, right? And really, that gap between it being worthwhile and not is really closing. I don't know. Do you think the same?
A study conducted by the University of Waterloo and Daniel Gutentag Hospitality Research surveyed customers booking Airbnbs in traditional hotels. The study found that 61% of all correspondents said that they chose the Airbnb as a budget-friendly alternative to even budget hotel chains.
Sure.
Despite the company's marketing as a way to share the vacation experience with a local host that can show you around a city, most respondents said that they did not care about this aspect of the service, and 70% stayed in a home that they had all to themselves, so they didn't have to share space with a random stranger. Despite people actually preferring not to share their short-term rental with a host, Airbnb still spends billions every year promoting this aspect of their service for a really important reason that will come up later.
Yeah.
Get an Airbnb and get a place to yourself.
Makes sense.
Anyway, the things that made Airbnb are now either being lost or offered by competitors in 3 areas. The first is price. Airbnb is no longer an affordable alternative to budget hotels. It is now a premium option competing with premium 5-star chains. According to the company's own data, even though the number of bookings has only increased 17% since 2019, the gross value of all bookings worldwide has increased by 67%. Airbnb is just not cheap anymore. The second area where the platform is losing out is its monopoly on homes away from home. Hotel chains have significantly increased their offerings of apartment-style accommodations that do away with typical hotel services in exchange for larger rooms with multiple sleeping areas and kitchens. To many customers, these semi-serviced apartments offer a better value because they combine the known consistency of a hotel chain with the space and price of an Airbnb. The third area...
I mean, how nice is it to have a reception you get into, you get out of your room, there's an included breakfast on the ground floor or whatever.
That turned customers against Airbnb was service. Hosts wanted to cut down on the work they needed to put into managing their properties, so they started putting more unrealistic expectations on guests about cleaning up before they leave.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I hate that part so much. When they ask you, please put the towels in the blah, please make sure you blah, you this, you that. And I'm like, what? How are we being made to work now? We're paying to work.
Cleaning fee, that will irk people, especially if you, the person staying in there, has to pretty much clean the house themselves.
That's
Overall,
crazy.
this is just a few bad hosts, but it has given the platform a bad reputation amongst customers who expect to be charged cleaning fees on top of already high rates compared to a hotel, where as long as there is not permanent damage, housekeeping will handle everything free of charge.
There you go.
If Airbnb's business was being a middleman platform between hosts and guests, then both of these groups having a bad experience is not a good direction for the company. But there is another group that has had it worst, and who are involved in the app whether they like it or not. And that's a third reason for the Airbnb bust. The public is sick of it. Customers can choose to stay wherever they want, and the threat posed by Airbnb and other short-term rental options has forced existing hotels to improve their offerings. Hosts were investors who need to accept that all investing carries risk. Most of them still own a home or multiple homes.
I think this is a good thing. The fact that the trend of Airbnb has forced hotels or motels or whatever it might be to increase their offer. The same happened with Uber in Denmark. So Denmark banned Uber, if you don't know. But in the midst of it all, the normal taxi service now had an app all of a sudden. One that you could book through the app, which if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have before. So this competition usually breeds a form of innovation, or not even innovation, just catching up. And it's almost like you're telling them, hey, you're gonna lose because you're lazy, right? And then they're like, okay, we need to step up our game. This is always, in my opinion, a pretty good thing.
that they can now lease out in an overpriced rental market or sell likely for a profit.
As long
Neither
as
of
it's
these
fair,
groups have
of
lost,
course.
unless they were really stupid. The people who did lose, though, were priced out of their homes because it became more profitable to rent to vacationers than long-term residents who needed a place to live. Poor renters don't have any power over the platform itself. But the problem of unaffordable homes in certain cities is becoming so bad that politicians are introducing new policies that will limit how many short-term rentals are allowed to exist and charging hosts additional taxes for running unregistered hotels.
If hosts are not playing by the rules, this legislation will require platforms to take down those listings.
Man, I really want to know what you guys think about this, because I'm half and half on it. It's a bit like, okay, I understand. We don't want rentals everywhere in a city. Although the same question is there, why are they all trying to rent out their place? And it's not all just because they're greedy. Maybe they can't afford it. They want to have some pocket money, all these things, right? So there's an underlying cause here that needs to be figured out and changed. Oh yeah, the other condition I had was, there's obviously a problem here where not enough housing is being built. So you have too few residences or rentals or properties to buy because of Airbnb coming up, or not just Airbnb, short-term rentals from people who are trying to get some extra pocket money or greed. And at the same time, not enough housing is being built, which is a problem in itself. So what's the deal here? Do you just, it's all patchwork issue, right? Why don't you just build more housing and make it easier to live, right? I'm asking for a lot. I know, I'm asking for a lot. But sometimes we got to see exactly what the clarity is. Where's the actual issue? Otherwise, we're all patchwork problem. Like we're putting patchwork on problems forever. It's just never sustainable over time.
The other group cracking down on short-term rentals are the people who you would least expect to be the heroes in a story about housing. Homeowners associations.
Oh my God.
Owners associations in
these
apartments and suburbs that have them are blocking owners from renting out their homes to short-term stays because residents who live in their homes don't like loud parties and additional security risks that come with the short.
Sure, but the more outsiders have a say on what you do with your home, the more I'll disagree. The loudness ordinance is just one that should be handled with police. That's it. HOA should have no say in this. Whatever you want to do with your home is completely up to you. It's also why I think property taxes should be banned.
Short-term guests. Some hosts are simply ignoring these laws and taking the fines into account as a cost of doing business. A report from McGill University's urban planning professor David Walksmith found that 45% of all short-term rental listings in Los Angeles are illegal in one way or another, and that the city could have levied between $56.8 million and $302.2 million in fines in 2022 alone. The semi-legal approach to rentals is still working for some hosts, but it's creating problems for the platform. Airbnb is spending hundreds of millions of dollars across the world fighting legal battles for the right to operate, and that's why they still spend so much on advertising their service as a way to see a new city with a local host. Even though most of their properties are rented out as whole new homes where a guest will never even see the person that owns their home, it's much harder to regulate shared short-term stays because it's harder to distinguish them from someone just staying with their friend. The folksy image of someone sharing their bedroom with curious travelers who want to see a new city with a local is much better PR than a multimillionaire or institutional property investor who has just listed their 10th home with a tech company worth $80 billion. And that's the fourth cause of the Airbnb bust. The platform is losing its control on guests, hosts, and the general public. Airbnb has always had competitors like VRBO, but now incumbent traveler sites like TripAdvisor, Booking.com, and Expedia are launching their own short-term rental platforms like Turnkey or incorporating them into existing sites that already aggregate listings from multiple hotel advisors. Airbnb charges a host fee of 3% to the people listing their properties, and a service fee of 14% to guests. Some hosts have found it cheaper to advertise their properties through local agencies and split these savings with guests.
My question is it really that expensive for Airbnb to run that they have to charge 14%? It might be with all the legal fees for all you know. Question to be had though.
Airbnb has about the same amount of technical overhead for a vacation stay as Uber has for food delivery or rideshare. But Uber can only make a few dollars off a small charge, where Airbnb can make hundreds of dollars from their 17% cut of every transaction. This has made the platform profitable where other peer-to-peer platforms have struggled to turn a profit, which is a great advantage in today's high interest rate environment, but it is also...
I guess he mentions it there, right? they're turning a profit, but maybe not so much as I might have thought.
Painted a target on the back of the company that has no competitive moat around their business model. Apart from their brand name and recognition, there is nothing to stop these new entrants entering the marketplace from taking market share away from Airbnb by offering a better service or charging lower fees. The bonus fifth reason behind the Airbnb bust was that the platform was never set up with longevity in mind. It has made billions in just a few years, and for its founders and early investors, everything else is just a bonus. That's not a bad thing, but if you're interested in businesses that have a bit more staying power, go and watch my video over on how history works to find out what it takes for a company to last 1,000 years. If you want to watch these videos a day early and get articles that will never be made into videos for YouTube, then subscribe to my email newsletter Compounded Daily to keep on learning how money works.
Thank you, good sir. Oh, that's an interesting topic. Let's see what people have to say. I sort of just stopped using it because it wasn't a good price most of the time anymore. Exactly. It's okay for some unusual rentals or maybe for a big house for a large group. That's correct. But traveling as a couple for short stays, it just costs more than hotels these days for a less reliable experience. 100% agree. Gotta like that. I was done when they told me I had to clean the bathroom. Wash the sheets and mop the floors. This is crazy. And they would still charge me for a cleaning fee. We canceled so fast and just split a hotel. So, that is the worst. That's probably one of the worst experiences you could have. Imagine a hotel asked you that. Imagine they came in, they gave you a rag and a mop and said, hey, mop the floor, or we're going to charge you. That is. I recently looked at Airbnb in Melbourne for a holiday. The difference for a 4-star hotel and Airbnb apartment was $20 for a 4-day stay, with Airbnb being cheaper. I went with a hotel because they'll clean my room exactly every day. I recently saw a rental that was $80 for the night, but the host added $200 host fee and a $200 cleaning fee. I got a hotel for $77 that included breakfast and parking, basically everything. Well, and more. It was the cleaning fee that turned me back to hotels. I'm telling you, man, this cleaning fee is the worst thing they could have ever done, or at least they should have advertised it on the front. Having to pay a fee and still be required to those to clean before we left was something got under my skin. And there was one occasion that the fee increased about $100 per guest per night, and that immediately outpriced itself over a hotel. I can't imagine, let's say you're 4 guests, $400. Oh, was it per night as well? There's no way cleaning costs that much. There's just no way. Airbnb died the moment they allowed all these property management companies to list on their platform. That's correct. Because these property management companies, they're looking for the bottom line, right? So they're squeezing every percentage they can. They're trying to make it as cheap as possible while getting the most out of it, right? And so they add all these dumb fees. They try to get around it. They try to ask you to do stuff. And eventually, the whole thing goes downhill. All right, last one. This one looks interesting. I remember traveling to Prague and Budapest in the early 1990s. Arrive at the train station and people standing on the platform would ask you if you want a room. You liked the look of them. This is a crazy story. Asked the general area and they pointed it out on a map. You went with them to their house or apartment, looked at the room, said okay, gave them a small fee by Western standards, and you had a clean, simple room, usually breakfast with your host, and an interesting experience. Turn it into a business and it all gets ruined. That is beautiful. That's pretty cool. That is an experience I'd take, yeah? Sounds a bit dangerous in today's standard, but hey, back in the day, it probably made perfect sense. All right. What do you think, guys? You do Airbnb still? Do you do hotels now? What do you do? Let us know. What do you think? Do you hate it still? Do you think it should continue? Should you limit the fact that people can only have maybe 3 rentals instead of 50? I see a lot of shitty rentals, man. And they're all built just to maximize profit. And they turn even garages with bunk beds in there for kids. Even that. They'll do anything for a few extra beds.